Morning YouTube, I'm Cross the King, StanStrength.com. In today's video, we're going to be discussing a trend that I've been noticing kind of coming back in terms of YouTube content, YouTube fitness content, and that is the pendulum between minimalism, maximalism, exercise variety versus hyper specialized training. Now, when it comes to content creation, I know for a fact that this is just always going to continue. There's always going to be people on both sides of the equation, and they both have a nugget of truth, and they will create content on both sides, so that way like more content can just always be created. The minimalist will always say something like, if you want a big bench, or if you want a big chest, you need to have a big bench. All you need to do is bench. If you want to have a big bench, then all you need to do is the bench press. You don't need to do anything else. You don't need to do anything fancy, nuanced, or include all these details. Just keep benching, bro. Like, there's going to be people who have that type of mentality, but then on the flip side, they'll say things like, the bench press sucks at building muscle. The deadlift sucks for building back. Like, if you want to build your back, all you need to, you don't need to do that, do this instead. And there are truths on both sides, and that's why this pendulum has always swung back and forth during my time as a lifter. But I want to create this video to kind of set forth a cornerstone in your thinking and like a starting point that you can use, so that way you are always staying on a middle path, and anytime you hear arguments presented on both sides, you're able to find out what is true. And when I say true, I don't just mean factual, I also just mean useful, like, because I think information should be understood as tools. So if they say something that is useful, you're able to isolate that useful part and take it with you while still maintaining your path forward. Whereas too often what ends up happening is when new information comes up, we go all into what their argument is. We take everything of their argument, accept it as valid, and implement it in our training, and I think that is horrible. So why does this happen? Part of it is because we condone this. It's just the name of the game. It's just content creation. What do we want to hear? We don't want to hear work hard and work consistently all the time. Now, the channels that spout that, they are very successful, but to their own metrics, but they're not very popular. You know, they're not getting hundreds of thousands of views. They don't have 1 million subscribers all the time. Usually the channels that have such high levels of subscribers and views and all that kind of stuff, like, they will often have these die-hard arguments, or like, you know, supreme editing, or every single video is the science behind this, the 10 new exercises of that, or stop focusing on this, do this instead. So these things that just kind of tell you what to do, tell you what to think, and it robs you of, you know, it robs you of any like responsibility, and that is kind of a good thing when all you want is results. If all you want is results and you don't want to really think about it, and you just want the easy path, then yeah, sure, just listen, and then now it's not your fault if you don't get results. It's now someone else's fault because, oh, I followed your advice and your advice is ass. Like, you are able to absolve yourself of responsibility, and maybe some people want that, but that's why this kind of pendulum keeps happening back and forth. Some people want to hear that all you need to do to get a big bench press and a big chest is just bench. Some people want to hear that I suck at benching, but then it's okay that I suck at benching because the bench doesn't really build muscle anyway. So now I can just keep fucking around doing machines and isolations all the time. Some people want to hear that. So that's why there is content out there, because there is a demand for it. So therefore, big channels supply it. So what do we need to do about that? And that is, quite simply, we need to understand that we have to just work hard and work consistently. Now, that is a boring answer, and there's a lot of things that need to kind of be included as caveats to really get the most out of this answer, but that's really it. You need to have part of what they're arguing when they say you need to bench press, you need to get stronger, you need to build up your level of strength. Part of that is really important. That's part of the working hard. Now, let's say on the other side, you need to include isolations if you want to max out your hypertrophy. You need to include other variations if you want to actually get better. there's truth there also. You don't need to swing back and forth and make a decision between one camp or the other. You could find what is useful of both, bring them together, and move forward. That's kind of why I kind of prefer a more concurrent power building style of things, because I'm no longer limited to just only do this or only do that. Because powerlifters will say something like, oh, you're doing biceps, bro? Like, why the hell are you doing biceps? Like, that's not gonna help you bench or deadlift more. Like, stop doing that. If you want to get a big body, all you need to do is this. That's horrible advice. But then, like, let's say like you go on the bodybuilding side of things. Oh, I only care about muscle size, bro, so I don't really care about my squat, bench, or deadlift. And then you come to find that every single movement they do is on a machine. They can barely move their body through space, and you think to yourself, in what way are you actually building your body? I've seen too many of that, and it's horrible. So what needs to happen here? When it comes to the choice of either one of these camps, choose neither. Now, you can still watch those videos, you can still watch those content, because there might be something in there that you can actually take and use. But like I said, don't just plant yourself like a tree into one thing. You are a human being. You don't just want to plant yourself down in one place, because that stops you from growing. You want to keep moving forward. You want to keep progressing. If you want to actually get stronger, get bigger, progress is the name of the game, and you find tools that help you facilitate that. And the number one thing that will prevent that, besides injury, is being too dogmatic, being too rooted into one thing. And once it stops serving you, you'll blame yourself rather than blaming the system, saying, well, I'm just not implementing this idea or this ideology or this training method, this philosophy to its full intent or full extent. So then it's my fault. I'm not working hard enough. When really you lack the other pieces that are found elsewhere. That's why it's important. The reason why I like having the example of the middle path is because you want to have one foot planted or taking steps in something you know to be true, and then something else kind of experimenting. You need to find out what works for you. You need to be able to do that, and you can't do that if you're just stuck in one place. So why is this bad for lifters? The reason why this is bad for lifters is because, for the purposes of size, bodybuilding, I usually say something like bodybuilding is an art and strength is a science. Now, truthfully, there are, like, to an extent, there's overlap between the two. Like, so there's a science of bodybuilding as well. I mean, like, the YouTube fitness space has really grown because so many people have tried to implement science into it to make it more, I guess, have a better appeal to people who aren't just like meatheads who just want to get big, get strong, and not really overthink it. But regardless, I usually just, when I'm talking to people, I will say something like bodybuilding is an art and strength is a science. In an art, you are trying to express your imagined ideal. You are trying to create something. You are trying to take the materials, which is just your body and your values and the things you like, and bring them out and put them onto your body. So for example, if you are more, let's say, classical bodybuilding minded, then you are going to prefer more of a wide taper look. Whereas if you just want to be this mass monster, then maybe you'll do an X taper where just everything is freaking huge. But that's your choice, because bodybuilding is an art. You get to build your body into the way that you want it to. With strength, however, you need to experiment, and you need to kind of try things out so that way you can produce desired results. With strength, you're trying to get stronger. You're trying to lift more weight over time, and you need to kind of implement tools that allow you to train over the long term, because strength training is very hard on the body. So how do you train in a way that allows you to train over a long period of time while also getting the results that you want? So programming, periodization, progression schemes, these are all things that are included into strength training. Now here's the issue. The reason why there's overlap between the two is because to an extent, you also need to apply that into bodybuilding. Now, if you just bodybuild and say, I want more biceps or I want more chest, and all you do is just more, and you don't really change your training beyond that, are you actually building anything? That's why it's kind of important that you need to learn from both disciplines. So if I want to get a bigger muscle, usually what I will do personally when I'm programming for that is I'm going to, over time, increase the amount of volume I'm doing in with it. So sets, reps, weight, exercise selection. So increasing the frequency. These are things that you can manipulate over time that you don't need to manipulate the same way that you would for, let's say, trying to increase your bench press, but it's still something that needs to be there. But here's the thing. If you subscribe to maximalist or minimalist training programs in which you just think to yourself, I need to do every single isolation exercise under the sun in one training day or else my chest won't grow, you are going to doom yourself to being forever small because you're either doing too much and you're not being able to progress, or you focus so much on these small isolation exercises that you sacrifice progression on big heavy hitters that actually build the muscle. If you do that, you are making a huge mistake. Now, let's say you go on the opposite side. You only do the minimalist approach, and someone tells you, just bench, bro. Like, you just need to do your bench press, and then you're going to build your chest. If you only do the bench press, it's going to be insufficient for a couple reasons. What if the standard barbell bench press is not your best training movement for chest hypertrophy? What if it's something more like a chest dip? What if it's something like a dumbbell bench press, an incline barbell bench press? Now, I know that these are arguments that are kind of almost like a straw man because very few people actually train this way. I mean, I'm tempted to say very few people, but I've seen it more commonly than I would ever expect to, that when I became a bit more active in the fitness community, I guess, rather than just being an observer and like talking to people in the gym a bit more. But generally speaking, most people will include either a lot of exercises but then they kind of like end up being in that maximalist camp I mentioned, where they just do so much on isolations and sacrifice progression on the standard heavy hitting lifts. But on the opposite side, where they're only doing one thing, it's kind of rare to see that. But when it does happen, they still kind of run into that same issue of, why aren't I growing? And part of it is because you refuse to experiment. You refuse to leave the boundaries of your ideology and your dogma to actually try something new and find what works for you. Bars. Mixtape 2025. Anyway, what I want is for the pendulum to stop swinging, at least in our mind. I can't control the YouTube fitness content creation pendulum. I cannot affect that in any meaningful way. But what I can affect is how we take in that content, how we consume it. When we hear 10 new exercises, when we hear focus on the basics, we can find a way to bring it together. Okay, so while focusing on the basics, I'm going to recognize that it's not the end all be all, and there might be 10 exercises, but maybe only 2 of them work for me. So in my middle path, I'm only going to do the big basics and then those 2 good exercises and go from there. Move along on my merry way. I don't need to spend too much time in either one thinking to myself, oh my God, because of these 8 other exercises, my chest isn't gonna grow. Like, that's bullshit. You're tricking yourself, you're deceiving yourself, you're falling for the trap of marketing. That's not how it works at all. You need to experiment, you need to try things out. Eventually you're gonna get to a point where you know that while those exercises are great, you don't need them because you still make great progress without it. And then maybe if you get bored, now you have all these other tricks and tools in your toolbox that you can pull out whenever you want to. And I think that is much more beneficial to the lifter, to any lifter, than, oh shoot, I only need to do the basics. If I stop doing the basics, I'm just going to be overtraining. I'm just going to be wasting time. And then on the other end, it's like, oh, I don't need to do that. All I care about is muscle growth, so I don't need to get stronger. Both of those lifters will not make any meaningful progress in the long term. So that is all I wanted to talk about in this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you are interested in coaching, I do have an online coaching service, and that is available on my website as well as Apparel. So I would really appreciate your support. Thank you so much for watching. My name is King, StanceRank.com, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.